Nobel Prize-winning scientist James Dewey Watson, the man whose name became synonymous with one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs of the 20th century, has died at the age of 97. His death was confirmed by Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in New York, the research institution that had served as his academic home for most of his long and complicated career. For decades, Watson stood as a towering, if polarizing, figure in the world of science, a man celebrated as a genius, criticized as a provocateur, and remembered as someone who reshaped humanity's understanding of life itself. Born on April 6, 1928, in Chicago, Illinois, James Watson was the only child of James D. Watson Sr. and Jean Mitchell. His father, a businessman, and his mother, a woman of Irish descent, both encouraged their son's early interest in learning. From a young age, Watson displayed a sharp, almost restless curiosity about the natural world. His mind seemed wired for questioning, for pulling things apart to see how they worked. By the time he reached high school, he was already fascinated with birdwatching, a hobby that would later spark his initial interest in biology. He was not the most athletic student, nor was he known for his social ease, but he had an intensity that made him stand out, an early indication of the determination that would later lead him to one of science's most remarkable discoveries. Watson's academic journey began at the University of Chicago, which he entered at just 15 years old, thanks to his participation in an experimental program for gifted students. He earned his bachelor's degree in zoology in 1947. During these early years, he became intrigued by the newly emerging field of genetics, then a mysterious frontier with more questions than answers. It was the post-war period, a time when science was rapidly evolving, fueled by both the optimism and devastation of the atomic age. Watson was drawn to the idea that hidden within living cells lay a kind of code, a molecular language that dictated the structure and behavior of every organism. He wanted to understand that language. After Chicago, Watson pursued his Ph.D. in zoology at Indiana University, where he studied under the mentorship of Nobel laureate Hermann Joseph Muller, a pioneer in radiation genetics. It was there that Watson was introduced to the groundbreaking research of Oswald Avery, Colin MacLeod, and Maclyn McCarty, the scientists who, in 1944, demonstrated that DNA was the molecule responsible for heredity. This revelation changed everything for Watson. He realized that DNA was not just a supporting molecule in the cell but possibly the key to understanding life itself. From that moment, he dedicated himself entirely to the study of DNA, convinced that its structure held the answer to biology's most profound mystery, how life transmits its essence from one generation to the next. In 1950, Watson moved to Copenhagen and later to Cambridge, England, where he met Francis Crick at the Cavendish Laboratory. Crick, a physicist turned biologist, was 12 years Watson's senior, outspoken, imaginative, and brilliant in his own right. The partnership between Watson and Crick would soon become legendary. Despite their differences in age, background, and personality, the two shared a relentless intellectual curiosity and an almost obsessive desire to solve the riddle of DNA. What began as a collaboration soon evolved into a race, a competition against rival scientists, including Rosalind Franklin and Maurice Wilkins at King's College London, who were also investigating DNA using X-ray diffraction techniques. The early 1950s were a tense and transformative time in molecular biology. The structure of DNA was the holy grail of science, and the world's best minds were chasing it. Watson and Crick worked tirelessly, often sketching possible structures on scraps of paper, building and dismantling molecular models, and debating theories late into the night. They were determined to find the shape that would explain how DNA replicated and carried genetic information. But despite their brilliance, progress was slow, until a crucial piece of data changed everything. That pivotal moment came in early 1953, when Watson saw Rosalind Franklin's X-ray diffraction image of DNA, famously known as Photo 51. The image revealed a striking X-shaped pattern, suggesting that DNA was a helical structure. While Franklin herself did not directly share the photograph with Watson, it was shown to him by Maurice Wilkins without her explicit permission. The insight it provided became the key that unlocked the puzzle. Building on this and other experimental findings, Watson and Crick constructed a model that revealed DNA's now iconic double helix structure, two intertwined strands connected by pairs of chemical bases that mirrored one another like the rungs of a twisted ladder. On February 28, 1953, Watson and Crick rushed into the Eagle pub in Cambridge, where Crick famously announced to the lunchtime crowd, "We have found the secret of life." Their discovery was published shortly after, on April 25, 1953, in the journal Nature. The paper was only a page long, understated in tone, but it would go on to revolutionize science. In a single, elegant model, they had explained how genetic information is stored, copied, and passed on, not through divine mystery, but through the precise pairing of molecular bases, adenine with thymine, and cytosine with guanine. Life's code was written not in words or symbols but in chemistry. Watson was just 24 years old when the discovery was made. The world of biology would never be the same again. The double helix model became a universal symbol, not just of science, but of knowledge, progress, and the interconnectedness of all life. It inspired entire new fields of study, from molecular genetics to biotechnology, and laid the foundation for everything from gene therapy to forensic DNA testing to the mapping of the human genome decades later. In recognition of their discovery, Watson, Crick, and Maurice Wilkins were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1962. Rosalind Franklin, who had died of ovarian cancer in 1958 at just 37, was not included in the prize, as Nobel Prizes are not awarded posthumously, a fact that continues to spark debate about gender bias and scientific credit to this day. The years following his Nobel Prize cemented Watson's status as one of the most influential scientists of his time. He joined Harvard University, where he became a professor of biology and inspired generations of students with his brash intellect and unapologetically direct style. His lectures were known to be both intimidating and electrifying, a mixture of genius, impatience, and charm. Yet Watson was never content to rest on his laurels. In 1968, he published The Double Helix, a memoir that provided an unprecedentedly candid, and at times controversial, account of the discovery of DNA's structure. The book was unlike any other scientific autobiography of its era, emotional, personal, and unfiltered. It revealed the rivalries, mistakes, and ego clashes behind the scenes, offering readers an honest portrait of how science truly happens, not in perfect harmony, but in chaos, curiosity, and human ambition. While The Double Helix became a bestseller, it also sparked outrage. Many in the scientific community, including Rosalind Franklin's colleagues, accused Watson of downplaying her role and portraying her unfairly. Some described his tone as arrogant, even misogynistic. Yet the book's impact was undeniable. It humanized scientists, stripping away the myth of detached objectivity and showing them as flawed individuals driven by passion, competition, and discovery. It remains one of the most widely read science books in history. Watson continued to shape the future of genetics long after his book's publication. In 1968, he became director of Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, an institution that would grow under his leadership into one of the world's premier research centers for molecular biology and genetics. He helped expand its programs, established new research directions, and mentored many of the next generation's brightest scientists. Watson was instrumental in developing the early frameworks for the Human Genome Project, the monumental effort to map all the genes in human DNA. Although he later stepped down from its leadership in 1992 following disagreements with the U.S. Department of Energy over data sharing policies, his early advocacy for open science and his belief in the power of genetic knowledge helped drive the project forward.